Live from the Heartland Mamas studio, this is the Heartland Mamas podcast. I am your host, Heidi Henry. As of today, we only have 344 days left to save the USA. 344 days until November 5th, 2024, when we find out if our democracy is going to hold here in the United States. Here in Illinois, candidates are filing for election right now. They're flocking to Springfield and to Chicago to file. It's really important that you identify the candidate that you support in the primary and get behind them and work to support them. And your support and volunteerism can be anything from putting a sign in your yard to passing out flyers door to door or at the grocery store. Just get on board and help somebody. It's really important that we get this work done. But we need to talk about how human fragility and trauma is being sensationalized in Chicago right now and across the United States. Migrants are being bused from the southern border. Not always it's something that they wanted to do, but something that they are enticed to do. And they're sent to blue cities across the United States. And they're sent to these blue cities on purpose, cities that are dealing with their own version of human trauma and suffering that has not been addressed. So we're taking very vulnerable, hurting people at the lowest point in their life, people who look to the United States as a beacon of hope in their hopelessness. And then these southern governors who we've given money to take care of the migrants down there at the border have clogged up their court system and have decided that they're not going to deal with it anymore. And they put these people on, these poor, suffering human people, on buses, and they ship them north. They ship them all over the United States to any Democratic city, especially if they have a cold winter coming up, to see if they can help them suffer a little bit more. And the problem with sending them to places like Chicago is that Chicago has not dealt with its own suffering. And then we bring the migrants in and we give them food and shelter and clothing and warmth when we have people living there already that we haven't addressed this with. We have people in those communities that have lived there their whole lives who are United States citizens that don't have enough food, that don't have clean water, that don't have a place to live, that can't stay warm this winter, that don't have a job. And then we put thousands and thousands of people into their midst. And we wonder why they're upset. Well, I don't wonder at all, because I've seen in my lifetime the disinvestment into those communities, the closing of schools and health clinics and mental health clinics, the closing of jobs, the running of streets and highways right through the neighborhoods. And then we put a whole bunch of other people who are coming from war-torn regions and regions with gang activity where they're threatened with hunger and death and dysfunction. And we put them into people who are dealing with the same thing, but the United States version of the same thing, the Chicago version of the same thing. And there's no place for those people to go. They already live there. But because they have become human pawns, the people that live there have become human pawns, and the people who are being bussed there are human pawns. They are pawns in a game that they didn't want to be part of. They are humans whose suffering is counted on to steer an election next November. Look, if you make enough people in these Democratic states, these blue states, mad, they're going to change their vote because maybe we should build that wall. That's what they're going to say. And that's what Greg Abbott and his ilk are counting on. Look, we could solve this problem. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a solution come forward for immigration in Congress. I've seen it under Clinton and Bush and Obama, and yet it only goes so far, and then it fails, and nothing happens. And that's intentional. The intentional screw-ups to keep people hurting is how they intend to steer elections. Because if you're so mad that you can't think about a solution that benefits everyone. And look, this is not pie. We can absolutely do this. We can address violence and poverty and hunger in this country by rolling back the W, Trump, and Reagan tax cuts. All we'd have to do is roll back the Trump tax cuts and we wouldn't have this problem. But the fact remains is that the people who are shipping migrants forward are counting on angering the people in those neighborhoods in Chicago where they're being delivered to. They know those people are already suffering. They know we have a housing crisis. They know we have a hunger and poverty and violence crisis already. So shipping people in to make matters worse when the money to take care of this was already sent, and we even sent more money to the southern border this year to help fix things. Look, according to the law, within 72 hours, they're supposed to get a court hearing at the port of entry where they came in. Are they really migrants looking for a financial opportunity? Or are they asylum seekers? And that is supposed to be determined in a court where they enter, in the state where they enter this country at. And yet again and again and again, we see the governors mostly in Arizona and Texas. We don't hear this too much from New Mexico or California. Gee, I wonder why. But we see them shipping these people in rather than taking care of business at their end like they're supposed to. They want to stir things up. They want to steer the election because they want the migrants to be the boogeyman when they are the boogeyman. They profit from human suffering. Every time Rahm Emanuel closed a school in Chicago, it was to inflict poverty, systemic poverty, and human suffering on the people that already lived there. It was to make matters worse so that we could drive people out of the city. That was his main claim to fame. Now, to make things worse, they're going to ship people in that should have been handled at the border, should have been processed there. But now we're waiting in Texas 7 to 11 years for a hearing, just a hearing, to get a court date to see if you're a migrant or an asylum seeker. Let me tell you, things happen pretty fast in everyone's lifetime. 7 to 11 years can be a lifetime. So we've got to cut that out, and we've got to find a way federally to hold them accountable so that they do the job that they're supposed to do. Now, we do have a worker shortage here in the United States because we have such a low unemployment level. We don't have enough people to do a lot of jobs. So there should be a way that we can look into how we can process this for people who are really seeking asylum. But the idea, folks, is to turn Latinx people on each other, to turn the Mexicans on the Puerto Ricans and the Puerto Ricans on the Venezuelans and the Venezuelans on the Chileans. It's intentional. And you need to be the one to rise above, knowing that you're hurting, knowing that there's already pain. Because if we did the right things, if we spent our tax dollars in the right way, we could advance this issue and not have this problem. But the intention is to cause unrest. The intention is to swing the votes in the election next November. So I want you to keep that in mind. Anytime you get mad and worked up about immigration, why is it the way it is? Because it's not like we don't spend enough money on it. We do. We need to figure this out, people, and we can do it if we work together. Now, I'm not saying all of us are going to get on board to make a solution. I'm telling you, and you know, that there are some people that don't want a solution to this because the politics goes in their favor. We all know that. So let's fight against that. From the edge of the Great Red Divide, this is Heidi Henry, and this has been the Heartland Mamas podcast. Have a great day.